So this is Mike. He's starting his first year at university, and he's super excited and especially hopeful that he might just find his dream girl. In his first MacIntroPsych lecture, he spots her, and he has no doubt that she is the one. But wait, he quickly looks around and realizes that there's a problem. In a class of about 600 people, it will be almost impossible for her to even remember him. I'm sure if you all look at your phones right now, you still have those contacts from first year courses that say something like first name Jim, last name Bio 1A3. So as busy university students, we have an overload of things that we have to keep in our memory. Like, when was that test day again? Did you remember to call your mom back this morning? And did you have an assignment due tomorrow? So is there actually a way that we can improve our memory? Mike is wondering the same thing. He wants to know if he can help the girl to remember who he is among all those people. So Mike quickly gets to work and researches some topics in psychology and comes up with 3 psychological principles that he will use to help her increase her memory of him. So the first is levels of encoding, the second is the serial position curve, and the third is encoding specificity. So Mike knows that using higher levels of processing during encoding improves memory. So he starts planning ways to memorably introduce himself. His first approach is a physical approach. I'm Mike, it's spelled M-I-K-E. But using physical cues such as spelling or capitalization only lead to shallow levels of processing, and that leads to poor memory performance during recall. So he tries to improve his technique a little bit by using an acoustic approach, like I'm Mike, it rhymes with bike. This results in a moderate level of processing, which leads to better, but still not optimal recall. And so he comes up with one final approach and tries to use semantic cues to ensure a deep level of encoding. Using semantic cues involves connecting that piece of information to existing networks of knowledge and really thinking about the meaning behind it. And a deep level of processing results in the best memory performance. So this is his grand idea. I'm Mike, like in the movie Magic Mike. So on top of that, Mike wants to use what he's learned about the serial position curve as shown in this graph. So the x-axis represents the order of items presented in the encoding phase, and the y-axis represents the recallability for those items. So he learns that items presented at the beginning of the encoding phase and the end of the encoding phase are recalled most easily, and decides that he'll try to be the first and last person that the girl sees in class. So the enhanced recallability of things at the beginning of the list is known as the primacy effect, and this occurs because those preliminary objects have more time to be rehearsed and therefore an increased chance of going into long-term memory. Enhanced recallability of things at the end of the list is known as the recency effect, and this occurs because those items are the most active in your short-term memory. So Mike's finally getting somewhere. He manages to successfully introduce himself to the girl and strike up a conversation in class, but he soon runs into yet another problem. The girl only remembers him when they're in class, but nowhere else on campus. He realizes that this is because of encoding specificity. So with memory, we have 2 phases, the encoding phase, where we retain information, and the retrieval phase, where we try to access that information. And encoding specificity refers to a phenomenon where we encode all aspects of our environment with the target piece of information. And so things present in the encoding phase can then act as cues for the later retrieval of that target memory. So in Mike's case, the encoding phase occurred in the classroom. So if the girl tries to remember him while they're in the classroom, there's plenty of cues available for her, and she will be able to remember him very easily. But let's say the encoding phase is still in the classroom, but now he sees the girl at the gym. Because the retrieval phase occurs in a completely separate environment, the cues aren't present for her to use, and she will have a hard time recalling who he is. So what should he do? Mike should ensure that similar environmental cues are present in both conditions, and that can be something as simple as carrying around the same bag when he's around class and at the gym. So with the help of science, Mike creates effective strategies to improve the girl's memory performance, and these are all techniques that are backed up by science and empirical evidence. So the levels of processing theory was first discovered by Craig and Lockhart, and in this example experiment, you can see that test performance increased with increasing levels of processing. The serial position curve was discovered by Hermann Ebbinghaus, and it's been replicated many times since. And then the encoding specificity was demonstrated in this famous study by Godin and Badley, where participants either encoded and retrieved information underwater or on land. And as you can see, a match in those conditions resulted in the highest memory performance. So obviously these memory tricks don't just apply to Mike and his quest for love, and we can apply these memory tricks to our everyday lives while we're working, studying, or even just remembering a grocery list. So next time you study for an exam, perhaps you can make a story out of the key terms, or you can study the hardest content first and last, or maybe even just wear the same shirt while you're studying as you're going to wear on the day of the exam. And these are all tricks that are scientifically proven. So now that Mike has solved the memory problem, he can finally move on to his next obstacle. How do you get out of the friend zone? Thank you.